For all populations, whether we're talking about terrestrial populations or aquatic populations, there has to be some kind of internal population regulation or control. There are a number of mechanisms that can be involved, but probably one of the most fortunately, advantageously evolved mechanism for internal population control is territoriality. And that's what we want to talk about today. Now, we've picked as our site for the lecture this cattail swamp that we're tucked up into. It's the home for, among other things, red-winged blackbirds. There's a good population of redwings in this particular island of cattails, going through all of the behavioral patterns associated with territoriality. Territoriality basically establishes within a habitat specific sites that organisms within that habitat will defend. Now, it is usually the male of the species that is more territorial. In that territoriality, the male will defend against usually other males of the same species, that it is usually an intraspecific phenomenon. And because of that protection, it'll provide a safe place for his mate, for the young that he raises, and we'll talk more about that in a little while. The major advantage to territoriality is it regulates the number of organisms that that habitat can support. That is based on the amount of cover, the amount of food available, the amount of nesting spaces, all of the things necessary for that population to be successful and to stay regulated in size so that they don't overshoot the carrying capacity for that habitat. As I mentioned, red-winged blackbirds are the classics to work with for territoriality because red-winged blackbirds exhibit a very strong territoriality in terms of behavioral patterns, as do most birds. In territoriality, and let's talk about red-wing specifically for a moment, the first to arrive into the habitat are the males of the species. When the males arrive, they pick out their individual territories, establish those territories, and go about defending or at least advertising to the rest of the population the various territories that they're defending. How do they advertise their position within the territory? Well, they do it basically by three mechanisms. One, they do it through song, through vocalization. The type of song and the amount, the length of the song, the volume of the song, all is indicative of the fact that they are defending this territory. Basically, they're advertising to other males that this is their particular spot within the habitat. They also accomplish this through posture. The males, by assuming a certain posture, a threat posture, let the other birds in territories close by know that they can't encroach on his territory. And third, and this is especially true of male red-winged blackbirds, they do it through plumage. That is, through the colors of the feathers. You've probably noticed that the male red-winged blackbirds have the red patches, very obvious, on the wings. And when they're defending a territory, when they're advertising to other males in the area, they spread the wings to flash as much as possible these red patches. And it's just like a red light or a warning sign. Stay away, this is my spot. Once these territories are established, all the other males in the population are literally forced out of the area. These become what are known as floating males, and these floating males will stay around the periphery of the habitat. Now, floating males usually include two categories. They are either very old redwings that can no longer defend their territories, or they're young birds basically just reaching maturity and have not established a territory in previous years. Floating males will hang around the outside. If anything happens to the dominant males, the ones that have the territories, if they die or are injured, then one of the floating males will move in and assume his territory.